Masechet Baba Batra Daf Kof Chaf Dalid. Yesterday we saw a baraita that made an important distinction. When does a firstborn get double? Well, he gets double of everything that the father has at the time that he dies. That's for sure. But what if there's an increase in value? What if the brothers don't split everything up right away? And while it's still in the estate, there's an increase in value. So the baraita made a distinction. If the brothers put money into it, let's say they build something on the land, and that was worth more money because they built something on it, the firstborn does not get a double portion of that increased value because that's an investment of their own time and money into it, so they all share the increased value. However, if it's something that increased on its own without any investment, for example, if they had a cow and the cow was rented out to someone else and that the renter was feeding it, so they were not putting any money into it, and that cow gave birth, now there's added value. In that case, the firstborn does get a double portion, even though that new calf did not exist when the father died, but because it's a natural increase, it's an increase that's on its own without any investment, so therefore the firstborn also gets double of that. That was the baraita, and now we ask, Maneh, who is the author of this baraita? It's not everyone, not everybody would agree with that principle. The answer is Rabbi de Tanya, en bechor notel pi shenayim beshevach sheshavchu nechasim lachar mitat avihen. Rabbi omer ani, bechor notel pi shenayim beshevach sheshavchu nechasim lachar mitat avihen. Aval lo b'shevach sheishbichu yutomim lachar mitat avihen. It must be to be, because look at this baraita where Tanakama says that a firstborn does not take a double portion in the enhancement that something got enhanced after the death of the father. They say we take a snapshot of everything and what it's worth at the time that the father died, and the firstborn only gets double of that. If anything increases for whatever reason, then that the increase is shared equally. Rabbi, however, says, according to me, the firstborn does get double of any increase that is increased after the death of the father. However, he does not get a double portion of that which the orphans put money into and cause to increase. Only if it increases by itself, not if hishbichu, not if the other brothers put something into it and enhanced it. So that's exactly a distinction that we saw in the previous baraita. So it makes sense that Rabbi Yehuda Nasi is the author of that baraita. This baraita continues. Yareshu shetarchov bechor notel pi shenayim. Yasa lehen shetarchov bechor noten pi shenayim. V'im amar eni noten ve'eni notel rashai. Rabbi Yehuda Nasi further says that if they inherited a promissory note, someone owed the father money and there was a promissory note, he died, but it wasn't paid yet, and now the sons inherit that promissory note, and eventually the person who owes money will pay. The firstborn gets double portion of that payment also, even though the money was not in the hands of the father when he died. According to Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, the firstborn also gets double of the amount when eventually that's paid. And also, just like it works for positively, it also works for negatively. Sometimes when someone dies, they bequeath to their children not an inheritance, but rather a debt. And so if the father owed someone money and then he died, so now the orphans are responsible for it, and the firstborn has to pay double of all the other brothers in order to pay out those debts, which makes sense. I mean, he's getting double, and then the payment is going to be from the inheritance, so it makes sense that he should have to pay double from what he got. But if he says, listen, the Bechor says, I give up my rights to be for special treatment as a Bechor, I'm not going to take double, and I don't want to pay double. If he wants to do that, then he can. Then he says, I want to be treated like a regular brother, and if there's big debts, then he may want to do that. Now, what's the source of Rabbanan that say, no, only what's actually in the hands of the father when he died, but an increase, no matter what kind of, even if it increases on its own, and loans also, the firstborn does not get double of any of that. What's Rabbanan's source? Amar Kera, latet lo pi shenayim, matana kariyera chamana, ma matana ad dematya lideh, av chelik bechora ad dematya lideh. Because the pasuk says that you give him a double portion, the firstborn. And it says the word latet, which is the same language as matana, giving something as a gift. Just like regarding a gift, you cannot receive a gift until it reaches the possession of the giver first. If I give you a gift, I give you a gift of the Empire State Building, but I don't own it, so it's not a gift to you because you can't receive it since I don't own it. So inheritance is the same as a gift. It's called here, it uses the verb that's the same language as a gift. And therefore, a father can bequeath to the children anything that's currently in his possession, so he can give it as a gift. He can give it as part of the inheritance. But if it's not something that he has in his hand when he dies, so when the father dies, this calf did not yet give birth. When the father died, this person who owes the money did not yet pay. So it was not in his hands to give, and therefore the children don't yet receive it. And that's a general rule, that the firstborn is only going to receive double of that which the father has in his hand. He has it to give. But anything that will come in the future, the firstborn does not get. ורבי אומר, אמר קרא פי שניים, מקיש חלק בכורה לחלק פשוט. מה חלק פשוט אף על גב דלה מטלידה, אף חלק בכורה אף על גב דלה מטלידה. Rabbi says, I'm going to focus just on the words pi shenayim, double. The firstborn gets double of what everybody else gets. So therefore, the same rules of what everybody else gets should apply to the firstborn also, except that you double it. So you see here that is juxtaposing the portion of the firstborn to the portion of a regular brother. Just like regarding a regular brother, even if it didn't get into the father's hands yet, but comes later, the regular brother gets a portion of it. And so too, the firstborn, even though it didn't come into the possession of the father, he gets double of that amount. In other words, let's say when the father died, there was no calf yet, it wasn't born yet, and he wasn't paid by this guy, and other things that didn't grow yet, and now will grow and increase in value. All these things, eventually, when they split it, maybe right when the father died, they didn't split it yet, they waited a couple of months to actually divide the estate. Whenever they divide the estate, all the money that came into the estate and all the increase in value of the estate in between, they all share equally. Where is it going to go? It doesn't go into the grave. It doesn't go to the government. It goes to the brothers. So just like they share everything that went up, so too the firstborn gets double of everything. It doesn't matter what it is, and there is a difference that even the Rabbi, as we saw above, would agree that if it's something that the brothers all invested in, they put money into something, they built a house on it, they fed this animal, and then that increased the value, then the brothers can all claim, no, this is a result of our investment, so we're going to share it equally. So that is excluded. But anything that happens on its own, or that someone else brings in, like pays a loan, all of that, the firstborn does get double. Now, we ask for the rabbis, what do you do with that phrase? Just take that phrase alone. He gets double. Doesn't mean double of everything that the brothers get. No, they say, pishanayim is an important phrase, but they're going to learn from that the double portion that the firstborn gets should be on one border. If you take land, and there's a lot of pieces of land, so when you give double to the firstborn, you don't give him one piece over here and another piece all the way on the other side. That's very inconvenient. It's harder to farm. So he gets a double portion joining each other, so that he can farm them all together. That's all he means. Pishanayim, double land, that is together. But it's not talking about anything that comes into the estate in the future. According to the B, what do you do with that phrase, latet lo, to give him? Where Rabbanan said, that's like a gift, and you can only give something that you already have in your hand. So the B says, Hahu she'im amad eni notel ve'eni noten rashai. We learned from latet law that if the firstborn says, I don't want to take and I don't want to give, that's okay. It is like a gift. Just like with a gift, you can refuse a gift. Someone gives you something, say, thank you, but thanks, but no thanks, right? I don't want that gift. I don't like this item. So you can reject a gift. So too, it's considered a gift. The firstborn doesn't have to take it. It's not like an obligation. Sometimes it is an obligation because it might be a debt. Okay, you inherited, double the debt. The firstborn could say, thanks, but no thanks. I don't want the double portion, and I don't want the double responsibility for the debt. That's what it means. Latet lo, it is like a gift that you can reject. Amar Papa, Dikla ve'alim, Ar'a ve'asek sirton, Tekula amala pelige de shakil, Ki pelige b'chafura, V'avash shuble, Shelo fafe v'avu tamre, Demor sabar shebacha dememela, Omor sabar ishtaneh. And then Papa gives a somewhat different interpretation of the machloket between Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and Rabbanan. And he says, if you have a palm tree and it grew bigger and stronger after the father's death, or you have land and it got silt on it, maybe a river overflowed and it got better soil, a topsoil on top of it. So in those cases, everyone will agree that the firstborn gets double. Even Rabbanan would agree because this is something that happened by itself. So in fact, in that case of happening by itself, everybody would agree. When do they disagree? When fodder grows and becomes full ears. In other words, when the father dies, there's little stalks, but it's not yet ripe. And then after some time, it grows more full ears of grain. Or you have date flowers when the father dies, and then they grow into dates. So this is something that's happening by itself. On the other hand, it's a new item that wasn't there before. It's not the same as a palm tree that just got bigger, or the same land there that just got another layer of soil. Here it's something that was just budding and now it's a whole fruit. So in this case, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi says, since it happened by itself, the firstborn gets double, the firstborn always gets double, except if the other brothers put money into it, investment into it. But here, it happened by itself, even though it's a new item, or it's the same item, or new item, if it's a date palm that grew, or it was just flowers and it grew dates, all that happened by itself, and the firstborn gets double. However, Rabbanan say, there's a difference. Now, these things are transformed into something new. There were no dates here before, there were no ears of grain here before when the father died. So if it's a palm tree that just grew naturally, then the firstborn gets a double portion of that growth, of that enhancement. But if something that wasn't here before, like the calf, there was no calf here before, it was just a pregnant cow, and now there's something new, and that's true even if it's natural growth, like a new date on a tree. In that case, Rabbanan say, no, the firstborn does not get a double portion. The next section will discuss who do we follow as halacha l'maaseh, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi or Rabbanan. Amar Rabba bar Chana Amar Rabbi Chia, asa k'divrei Rabbi asa, k'divrei Chachamim asa. If a case like this comes to a judge, where you have a father died, at the time that he died, there was a cow that was worth $1,000, and the cow was rented out, and then it gave birth, and the brothers didn't put any money into it, and now they come to split it, and the firstborn says, I want double of the calf. And the others said, no, when dad died, the calf was not yet born, so we should all share equally. So if the judge rules like Rabbi Yehuda Nasi and gives the firstborn double, then that judgment stands. And if the judge follows Chachamim and say, no, you all have to share equally, then that judgment also stands. In other words, there is no clear halacha one way or another, and the judge can use his own discretion and decide whichever way he wants. Now, why is Rabbi Chia uncertain about this? Misapek aleh, I halacha ke Rabbi mechavero velo mechaverav, o halacha ke Rabbi mechavero ve'afilo mechaverav, because he's not sure what the rule is when you have Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, who is a great chacham, and so he takes precedence over others. But when you say he takes precedence over others, is it over one other or even over a majority? He's not sure. Is the rule that halacha follows Rabbi mechavero? Whenever you have Rabbi Yehuda Nasi versus one of his colleagues, Rabbi Yehuda Nasi always wins, but not against the majority of his colleagues. If it's a majority against Rabbi, then you follow the majority. That might be the rule. Or is the rule that halacha is like Rabbi, not only if he's against one of his colleagues, but even all of his colleagues? So the majority opinion says that we should follow Chachamim. That's by definition, that's the majority. So if you follow that, okay, maybe that's the rule. But if you follow Rabbi, it's also good, because maybe the rule is that halacha is like Rabbi over everyone. All right, so that's one opinion. We're actually going to have four opinions about what the halacha is. Amar Rav Nachman Amar Rav, asur la'asot kedivrei Rabbi, kasavar halacha kerebi mechavero velo mechaverav. Rav Nachman, name of Rav, says a judge is not allowed to follow the ruling of Rabbi Yehuda Nasi, because he thinks that The rule about rules, the meta rule, is that halacha follows Rabbi only against a single colleague, but not against the majority. So if a judge rules like Rabbi and gives the firstborn double, it's an invalid ruling, and another court should overturn it. Now, even though Rav Nachman quoted in the name of Rav that you're not allowed to follow him, Rav Nachman himself disagreed with his teacher Rav, and he said it's permitted to follow Rabbi. When he says permitted, he might just be using the word permitted as a contrast to asur. What he seems to actually be saying is you should follow Rabbi. Why? Because he thinks that the meta rule is that halacha follows Rabbi not only against a single colleague, but also over the majority. Halacha follows Rabbi always, even against the majority. And if that's true, then you have to follow Rabbi. If you don't follow Rabbi, then actually it'll be a problem. Amar Rava, asur la'asot kedivrei Rabbi, v'masa asui, kasabar matin itemar. Rava, the last opinion about how to follow halacha, it looks like we have all the opinions so far, right? We have that you can choose either way. It's optional, one or the other, or you cannot do Rabbi, or you have to do Rabbi. But Rava says yet another one. Lechatechila, you should not follow Rabbi. So that would be the same as what Rav says. However, he disagrees, and he says, B'di avad, if you did follow Rabbi, it's okay. Why? Because the rule is matin. We incline after Chachamim against Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. But incline is different from an absolute ruling. That's not like halacha ke or halacha is not like Rabbi, but rather we tend towards Rabbi, we tend towards Chachamim against Rabbi. But Rabbi is powerful enough that b'di avad, if you follow that, then it's okay. So if a judge sees that he thinks Rabbi is right, or in this particular case, it makes sense that one should follow Rabbi. So usually you should follow Chachamim, but if you want, b'di avad, if you follow Rabbi, that's okay, and that's the opinion of Rava. Finally, we have two baraitot. One supports Rabbi and one supports Rabbanan. Taneh Rav Nachman b'sh'ar sifrei debei Rav bechol asher yimase lo perat hashevach sheishbichu yorshin lachar mitat avihen aval shevach sheshabchu nechasim lachar mitat avihen shakil umaneh Rabbi hi. There is a baraita in the other books from the Bet Midrash. This is referring to the Tanaitic Midrash on Sefer Devarim, which we do call Sifrei Devarim, as opposed to Sifra. Sifra, an aleph at the end of a word in Aramaic, is like a he at the beginning of a word in Hebrew. That means Ha Sefer. So the main Midrash is on Vayikra. Sifra refers to the Midrash on Vayikra that seems to have been studied first and was a central text. But there were also Midrashim on Bemidbar and on Devarim, and so those are called Sifrei in plural because they're on other books. And so in that Midrash, Sifrei Devarim, it says on the Pasuk that you give the firstborn double, Bechol asher yimase lo, of everything that the father has. What does that mean? What is it excluding? Only what he has and not what? That comes to exclude increase that the orphans put into it after the father died. Sheishbichu, they put money into it. That's like when they build a house on the land, the firstborn does not get that. However, if it's enhancement that was enhanced by itself, it's not that they put money in, but rather rental income, a calf that was born, something that grew, dates that grew, then in all that, the firstborn does get double. So who's the author of this baraita? It would be Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. Another baraita, Taneh Rami bar Chama b'shar sifrei debei Rav bechol asher yimase lo perat hashevach sheshavchu nechasim lachar mitat avihen v'kol sheken shevach sheishbichu yorshin lachar mitat avihen de la shakil umaneh Rabbanan hi. There's a baraita taught by Rami bar Chama and also from the other books of the Bet Midrash. So from some other Midrash that's also from the Tanaim on the same pasuk that says you give the firstborn from whatever he has in his hand, from whatever the father had, and this comes to exclude any increase that happened after the death of the father, and all the more so if it's increase that the heirs put into it, that they caused it by investing in it, then certainly the firstborn won't get it. But in fact, the firstborn does not get any of the increase, even if it happened by itself. So, is the author of this baraita? Evidently, it is Rabbanan. Amar Rav Yehuda, Amar Shemuel, and Bechor Notel Pishanayim B'milveh. So now we have a new statement by Rav Yehuda in the name of his teacher Shemuel, that a firstborn does not get a double portion in a loan, meaning something was owed to the father, then he died, and the guy paid up after the father was dead. It went to the estate. All the kids divide that money equally. The firstborn does not get a double portion from a loan. We ask, Leman, who is Shemuel following? If you say this is the opinion of Rabbanan, that Shemuel is saying this according to Rabbanan, well, that doesn't make sense, because if, according to Rabbanan, even enhancement of property that's in the possession of the father, and then he dies, and then it goes into the estate, and it enhances in value, something grows on the land while it's in the estate, and still the firstborn does not get it because it's something that value was not there when the father died, and so the firstborn does not get double. So if that's true, even for something that's actually in the possession that grows, or a calf that's born, then all the more so a loan, which is new money that's coming in to the estate, obviously the firstborn is not going to get a double portion. So Shemuel would not need to say this according to Rabbanan. Ela Rabbi, so it must be that this is according to the B. Yes, even though according to the B, enhancement or a new calf that's born, he gets double because it's in the possession, at least the item is in the possession, now it just gave birth to something new. But for a loan that's new money that comes in from outside, the B would agree that there is no double portion to the firstborn. But this is not a plausible answer either, as we see from the next baraita. Ve'ela hadetanya yarshu shetarchov bechor notel pi shanayim ben b'milveh ben b'rebit maneh lo Rabbi ve'lo Rabbanan. We have another baraita that says that if the orphans inherit a loan document, so they got the father, someone owed the father money, and now the loan document goes to the kids, and so they have this loan document, and eventually the creditor pays that loan. The firstborn gets a double portion, whether in the principal of the loan or the interest. Let's say it's a loan to a non-Jew, and he pays interest. The firstborn gets double of that. Now, who is the author of this? If you say that the previous statement of Shemuel, he was following Rabbi, then this baraita cannot be Rabbi, and it certainly cannot be Rabbanan, because if you say that Rabbi is of the opinion that the firstborn does not get a double of a loan, that's what we just said, and Rabbanan certainly don't think that the firstborn can get double of a loan, then this baraita that says the firstborn does get double of a loan and of the interest, well, then it would have no author. Le'olam l'Rabbanan. So you know what? We go back and we say Shemuel's statement that says a firstborn does not get double from a loan, that actually was according to Rabbanan. And that which you asked, wasn't that obvious? I need to say that according to Rabbanan, even though we already know that land that's in their possession, or a calf or a cow that's in their possession that gives birth or it grows, you don't get a double portion. Even though they already said that, still Shemuel had to teach us this as well, because I might have thought that a loan, since it's in a promissory note, so you might think that the promissory note itself is a valuable item, and you can use that, easy to collect with that. In fact, you have an IOU, you can sell the IOU. It's worth money. It's like having a check. So you can sell it, and so since I have an IOU against you, it's like I already collected the money. It has cash value. So I might have thought that when the father dies and the son and the kids get an IOU, that it's considered as if already collected. It's as if it's already in the hands of the father when he dies, and therefore the firstborn would get a double portion. I might have thought that, and that's why Shemuel has to come and say, not true. According to Rabbanan, they do not get, the firstborn does not get a double portion. But according to the Yehuda Nasi, the firstborn does get a double portion in that loan that is paid out. Shalchu mitam bechor notel pi shanayim b'milveh aval lo b'ribit. And now another statement from Eretz Yisrael. The sages there sent a message and a ruling that said, a firstborn gets double in the principal of the loan, but not in the interest. Interesting. So it's making a distinction, unlike the Baraita above that said the firstborn gets a loan and interest, and we said that was according to the B. This says yes for the loan, capital, but not for the interest. Leman le'emad Rabbanan hashta shebachad ite birshuteh amri Rabbanan de la shakil milveh mebaya. So now who is the author of this statement from Eretz Yisrael? If we say it's Rabbanan, so Rabbanan said that the enhancement of the property, which is in the possession of the father when he dies, and yet when it enhances, something grows, or a calf gives birth, the firstborn does not get double of the calf or of the new growth, and Rabbanan said that, then all the more so, a loan that comes in, including the principal, is a new thing that's coming in, and he would not get it. So this cannot be according to Rabbanan. Ela l'Rabbi, so it must be that the sages of Israel are following Rabbi Yehuda Nasi. But that's a problem. U'Rabbi b'Rabbit lo, v'Tanya Rabbi omer bechor notel pi shenayim beben we have a baraita, the same, similar to the one that we quoted above, but this one actually says it is to be. Up above, we established that it would be to be. So this baraita says that according to the B, a firstborn gets a double portion both in the principal of the loan and in the interest that is paid on that loan. And this statement from Eretz Yisrael says only the capital, the principal, and not the interest. So the answer is le'olam rabbanan hi umeveh keman de gavya damya. Now what? The statement from the sages of Israel actually could be according to Rabbanan. And Rabbanan would say that the principal of a loan, that where there is a document to the loan also, it's as if it's already collected. This was we presented this as a hava amina above that we rejected. But according to this opinion, the sages of Israel, they would say that according to Rabbanan, if it's land and the land produced something, or a cow and produced a calf, so this is something that was not around. This is a new item, a new calf, didn't exist before. The firstborn does not get double, because even though the cow was around, this calf was not around, so he does not get double. A loan document, even though it was not yet paid, that's considered as if it's paid because you have the document, and so you can collect the principal based on that. So for the principal, the firstborn does get double, but for the interest is an increase above and beyond the principle that's stated in the document. So for that, Rabbanan would say, no, that's an increase, that's extra income that is built on top of the loan. So that is not considered a part of the loan that is already collected. That's considered like new money, new profit that comes in and is not included. Amar le Rav Acha bar Rav le Ravina, ikla amemar le atrin, vedaresh bechor notel pi shenayim b'milveh aval lo b'ribit, amar le nehar. And Rav Acha, the son of Rav, said to Ravina, Amemar came to our place, he came to our city, and he gave a derasha, he gave a lecture, and he said that a firstborn gets double in the loan, the principal, but not regarding the interest, which is exactly that was the statement that we just said, in the name of the sages of Israel. And Ravina responded that, he comes from Nehar De'ah, and Amemar comes from Nehar De'ah, and Nehar De'ah are following consistently their opinion, because we have other sages from Nehar De'ah that also say the same thing. On the next daf, we will quote Rav Nachman, who is from Nehar De'ah, and in fact says this same opinion. Baruch Adonai Le'olam, Amen v'Amen.